You're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology. For grounding your ass from all the new age sass. I am your host, Jeff Henshaw. Season 4 of Cosmic Cousins is dedicated to honoring the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. Hey Cosmic Cousins, happy Halloween, happy Samhain, happy Day of the Dead, happy Witches New Year, all of it. I'm so stoked that it lined up for us to gather on this day. If you're listening live, it's October 31st in the year 2018. And so this is a very special time of year. And I think a lot of us in the astrology community, in the esoteric community, really feel connected to this time of year because it's all about going into the depths, diving into the subconscious, exploring our shadows, honoring death and rebirth and the cycles of nature and life. And so this is exactly what we do in our astrology practice is we're honoring cycles, whether that be nature here on this plane. When we're following the sun seasons, we're honoring the cycles of nature, but we're also honoring the cycles of the planets. And when we tune into them, it allows us to expand into the limitless of our souls. And when I think of that orbit of the planets, right? It's moving in a circle. And so that circle is unity, and it is waking us up to the deeper knowing that life is eternal, which is what is underneath the truth of this season of Scorpio, of death and release. And so thanks for being here today. On this week's episode, we have a special Halloween meditation with a pumpkin theme. That's right, you heard me. We're going to be meditating on pumpkins. And then I'll update you on the transits for the week. We have quite a lot of movement happening in the sky and some big build up to shifts that will be happening in the coming week. And so I'll update you on that. And then we'll talk about the Queen of Scorpio tournament we have going on. And so we'll honor the life of 3 of the women who are voted out this week. And then finally, we'll round our time out with an incredible interview with Madre Jaguar, who is a Los Angeles-based shamanic Reiki practitioner, a medicine woman, birth doula, and the founder and curator of the Mystic Bazaar. And so Jaguar is a Scorpio sun and is serving us some mad Scorpio high vibes. We talk about death, rebirth, transformation, angel numbers, Reiki, cacao ceremonies, and really the heart of it is about how Scorpio is learning to reconnect to the earth. And so it's another full episode for you this week, and what an honor it is to be here with you all. And so it's my hopes that this podcast is a platform for you to come back to each week, to have a space where you feel loved, and especially with all of the happenings in the world. And so in the wake of the shooting at the synagogue in Pittsburgh, and to those of you in Brazil who may be feeling heavy this morning because of the recent happenings, all of it, know that this podcast is here for you to come back to as an opportunity to check in with yourself and to feel the connection of your cosmic cousins and to all the other people who are tuning into this show who resonate with this same vocabulary. And so we'll always have the time to bring it to the body and to the breath. In the introduction, you heard that this is about embodied health. That's one of the things we do. Embodied health, deeper learning, self-discovery. These are the 3 tiers of our time together. And so let's start here with a deep inhale and bringing it into the body. Scorpio season is a time of year where we're being invited to feel all of our feelings, especially the darker, more scarier bits that we might not allow ourselves to get into. Feel into your anger, feel into your rage, breathe into whatever emotions are present for you at this time. And in light of Halloween, our theme for today is working with pumpkins. And so I'd like you to see yourself as a pumpkin. Really visualize yourself. Allow the eyes to close if you're in a place where you can do that. And feel the weight of yourself. And what we're going to do today is we're going to clear out the inside of this pumpkin. Touch base to all of the gucky, sticky insides. Breathe into that. You can breathe into the belly, into the digestive system. You can breathe into the sacral chakra, the root chakra, these lower chakras where we might store this guck. And so Scorpio season is about deep release. And at this time, begin to visualize yourself reaching inside of yourself and beginning to clear out the seeds and the goop that might be inside. And start with something light. You can call to mind something that might have happened recently this week that made you feel upset or hurt. And visualize yourself taking this out of the pumpkin. This human experience we have here on Earth is filled with opportunities for us to collect and store and hold on to the past, or to find ourselves fixed or stuck in emotions. And this is what we could call spiritual debris. Scorpio is a fixed water sign, and so fixed is stuck. Water is emotions. So it's holding on to emotions and experiences. This is one way that fixed water manifests. But we're being invited this time of year to shed those layers, to come back to the eternity of our spirit. And so keep reaching into yourself, into this pumpkin. And now touch base to something deeper inside of you that feels like it's at the bottom of this pumpkin. Maybe it's something you've repressed or hidden for a long time that you don't allow to come out very often. And so grab a hold of that and scoop this out of you. And notice what it feels like to have it exposed, to be given room to breathe. And you can say something loving to it, like, "Thank you, I see you." As you scoop it aside, and everything that you're scooping out, all of this that you're holding on to, I want you to picture placing it in a bowl so that it's not just like, now out in the open, but keep it all together. And so clear out any last bits of debris that might be caught up in here. And visualize the inside of you, inside of this pumpkin, as being completely cleared out. Beautiful and spacious. And take that bowl of insides and guts, and now visualize it being buried in the ground, taking it to the grave, so to speak. And so we're burying it in the ground so that it can be composted and transmuted by the power of Earth. Scorpio is learning the power of Earth when it travels into its polar sign of Taurus. The signs only evolve with each other. And so you can place your hands on top of this mound that's been created, and you can say, "Thank you, I love you." And then come back to yourself as the pumpkin. And let's set an intention now. And so this intention can come to you in the form of an animal, or perhaps it's a word or a phrase that's coming to you in this moment. What seeds of intention are you wanting to plant today? And so allow this to come to you. Take the next few rounds of breath to connect with an intention. And in this visualization, come back to the pumpkin and now carve this intention into your pumpkin. So we're kind of making this like jack-o'-lantern thing. And so it could be, you could carve the picture of an animal if an animal came to you. If it's a word, you could visualize the word being carved into the pumpkin, or maybe something that would symbolize that intention. And once you have that in mind, you can see it and breathe it into the heart. And then here in this heart space, we're going to light the candle from within. And so now this is the light, this pure light that you're shining out to the world. And even if you can't feel yourself lighted up, just to visualize this pumpkin and now allow it to come outside of yourself so you can look at it. Feel the spaciousness you've created. Feel the intention you've set shining out to the world. And we'll keep that there. And we'll head into the rest of our episode. And so today is October 31st, 2018. If you're listening to this live. If you're not listening to this live, this episode's also going to be jam-packed with some really great information. But this next portion is just for those tuning in live. And so the sun is at 9 degrees of Scorpio today. And it's moving to the 15th degree of Scorpio throughout the week. And so this is taking us into the heart of this Scorpio season. And it's asking us to continue to explore and hold space for these deep felt emotions. This is also the time where the veil is really thin. So connecting with your ancestors, connecting with your tarot deck, these sort of things are great, and the universe will respond to you at this time. Mercury, the planet of communication, entered Sagittarius, the sign of faith and expanse. And so it entered Sagittarius yesterday, and so there is a shift towards the way that we're viewing the world this week. It's more forward, more big picture, more communicating about faith and philosophy. So this week is a time to start to get a little bit more studious and philosophical, to start planning for the future. And it's kicking us off nice because Jupiter has been in Scorpio all year. And so the day after the elections, which by the way, the elections are this Tuesday, November 6th, go out and vote. Random fact, my voting station is the Scientology Center, which when I saw that, my heart dropped. So if I'm missing, y'all know where to find my Aquarius ass. But I do have a neighbor that I have as my voting buddy, so I'm not going alone. But yeah, next Wednesday, Jupiter moves into Sagittarius. And so we'll talk about that next week on the show. But it's finishing off its square. Mars in Aquarius is finishing off its square with Jupiter in Scorpio. And so Jupiter is in the last reigns of Scorpio this week. So Jupiter has been expanding us into our darkness and shadows and sexuality for over a year now. Jupiter entered Scorpio right at the beginning of the #MeToo movement. And so really feel this last bit of Jupiter in Scorpio. I think of Jupiter as like a big personality. And so someone with a big personality in Scorpio can be quite intense. And so this could be a week of really owning the parts of yourself that you feel ashamed of. Tune into your shame, expand into it this week. It'll be another 13 years before Jupiter enters back into Scorpio. So now is your chance in a really big way. Another interesting transit that's going on. We know Venus is going retrograde, and today she moves back into Libra and travels from the 30th degree of Libra to the 27th degree of Libra this week. Old relationship karma could be resurfacing for you this week. And with the sun in Scorpio, there could be a deep longing to bring healing to these aspects of your life. If you're feeling drawn towards reaching out to an old partner, start with just connecting to them in the spirit realm first before actually reaching out. What else is going on? we're winding it all down this week as well towards the new moon in Scorpio, which is next Thursday. And so the moon is moving through the interpersonal signs of Leo, Virgo, and Libra this week. Spend extra sweet care on your body this weekend with moon in Virgo. Carve out some space to be alone, but also reach out to those in a one-on-one capacity. Hang out with people one-on-one this week could be nice as well. And so lots of shifts in the sky this week. Let's transition into the next part of the show. And so I'll have a little announcements for you now. Cosmic Cousins is a weekly podcast that is brought to you by Patreon. Patreon is a website that is powered by you, the listener, who make a monthly contribution to the show. And without you, the show would not be possible. So thank you to all of the Patreon supporters. If you'd like to continue to make this show a reality, you can go to patreon.com/cosmiccousins and make a pledge today. I also offer astrology readings. You can find out that information at astrologycousins.com. And that's all the announcements I have for you this week. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. And let's transition now into the Queen of Scorpio. So here on Cosmic Cousins, we have been working on a segment called Queen of the Zodiac, in which I select 16 legendary women who embody the traits of the current sun sign we're in, and then the listeners of the show vote on the Instagram for the show, which you can find at cosmic.cousins. And so they're voting on who they believe embodies the characteristics and gives us the high vibe feel of that particular zodiac sign. And so now we're working on the Queen of Zodiac. And so I'll update you on that. Up first, we have Hollywood's Ice Queen Grace Kelly going up against Icelandic singer Björk. But in the end, Björk's scowling voice and intensity won out by a huge percent. It was 75% of your votes. And so let's honor Grace. Grace Kelly was a Scorpio sun and rising with Mercury and Mars in Scorpio and a Pisces moon, and she was known as the Ice Queen of Hollywood. She was a legendary 50s actress who later attained the title Princess of Monaco. As a muse to master of suspense Alfred Hitchcock, Grace Kelly was known for her mysterious beauty, sexual power, and chilling nature, fixed like the waters of Scorpio. And so Grace was cast for many roles because she appeared to be, quote, like a snowy mountain, but underneath you could feel her raging like a volcano, which Scorpio has a connection to rage. Grace's fierce nature doesn't come as a surprise, though, because as I was listening to her life on the podcast, let me look it up. This is a cool podcast, but they have a segment that's called Dead Blondes. And so that might be something cool for you to get into over this Scorpio season. The segment's called Dead Blondes, and the podcast is called You Must Remember This. And so you can find that on iTunes. You Must Remember This, and the segment's called Dead Blondes. But I tuned into a whole episode and I learned all about her life. It was great. But yeah, her fierce nature doesn't come as a surprise because she was the shy daughter of a wealthy building tycoon and was expected to live a life as a housewife. But Grace was fiercely independent as a child and very intellectual. And she had really bad eyesight. I remember them saying that she had really bad eyesight, but refused to wear glasses. And so when she was up close in person with people, she wouldn't make eye contact and she wouldn't remember people's faces. And so she was a little different, right? And I think Scorpio might feel into this because they're feeling into wanting to connect to other realms and wanting to ask deeper questions. And so there wasn't this like need to socially connect necessarily. And because of this, her piercing intellect and determination lent her to want to break free of the chains of her inherited upbringing. And so she was often ridiculed and condemned publicly by her parents as the black sheep of the family, and they often said that her older sister was the true talent in the family. So you can see why Grace wanted to disobey orders. She moved to New York City to pursue acting, and she was only ever in 10 films. I didn't realize that. It's kind of amazing to think that she was only ever in 10 films, but the influence and attention that she drew in during this time displays this intense magnetism and mysterious charisma of Scorpio. And then as Grace grew more publicly known, she became really uninterested in Hollywood and the publicity of it, which is also showing us this secretive side of Scorpio too. So she left fame for the life of secrecy, and she later married Rainer III, becoming the Princess of Monaco. But tabloids continued with vicious rumors about her. And one tabloid I found read, quote, "Innocent flirt or nymphomaniac." Grace had 2 daughters and immersed herself in the world of charity work as a princess. But Hitchcock continued to offer her lead roles, and she almost accepted one, and it was, of course, to play the role of a kleptomaniac, which is also very Scorpio. And it's interesting to see how she's cast for these certain kind of roles. But the public outcry in Monaco swayed Grace from getting involved in film, which displays Grace's fierce Scorpio loyalty. And then on September 13th, 1962, Grace had a stroke while driving and drove off of a steep, winding road down a 120-foot mountainside. And so it's a bit of a tragic ending. And her daughter, Stephanie, was a passenger in the car and survived. Grace Kelly founded a Monaco-based nonprofit organization that supports the spiritual well-being of children through the world without distinction of race, nationality, or religion. And so that really feels like that Pisces moon with universal compassion. And her daughter, Princess Caroline, carries the torch today in her role as president. Grace Kelly's inner Dorothy, so Scorpio Sun, Pisces Moon, Scorpio Rising, is an intense little girl, Scorpio Sun, in a magical boat out to sea, transforming darkness into light. And that's exactly what she did through her life and her offerings. And so, Grace Kelly, we honor you and thank you for all that you offered to this world. Up next, we have Whoopi Goldberg going up against Katie Lane. Whoopi Goldberg holds a magnetic presence and deep wisdom, and the characters she plays in movies often hold authority around matters such as death, power, and transformation. And in the end, that won out against Katie Lane by about 59% of the votes. And so let's honor Katie Lane. Katie Lane, nicknamed Queen of Androgyny, is a Grammy-winning Canadian pop and country singer-songwriter and occasional actress. And she is known for being an animal rights activist, gay rights activist, and a Tibetan human rights activist. And she is a tantric practitioner of the old school of Tibetan Buddhism. And a little bit about Katie Lane, she has this beautiful combination of her androgynous looks with a sensual voice, and it pulls you in. I think even more so when you're watching her perform. There's a sense of charisma and magnetism that she exudes of a true Scorpio. And this is a quote from her. Quote, "When women make their image about youth and sexuality and not about their intellect, that's kind of a dead-end road. So I think it's a combination of self-entrapment and entrapment by society." Lang was 5 when she realized she was gay, 13 when she came out to herself, 17 when she came out to her mother, and 30 when she came out to the world. And so by being a star in the 80s who was out, especially as a woman, Katie served as a fierce role model for many. In an interview, she says this, quote, It's easy to forget now what an impact announcing you were gay had back then. There was some pressure from her record company not to, but looking back, she says, quote, "Coming out both helped and hindered me. I don't think my album would have been a hit without me coming out." And then she goes on to continue. I like this. "I wouldn't have gotten on the cover of Vanity Fair sitting in a barber's chair being shaved by a supermodel, Cindy Crawford." And then she ends it but says, "But at the same time, I've always been different." And she definitely is different. I watched a rare video of her when she was in her early 20s explaining how she used to be very bizarre with her performances, which kind of brought to mind Bjork a little bit. But she recalled a scene where she crawled across the stage in a trash bag. But then one day she said it just clicked and she realized that being bizarre for bizarre's sake is unstable. And she continued to explain the importance of structure and form, which is such a beautiful example of Scorpio's fixed water. And so that's when she transitioned into being a country singer. And she is a country singer, but I consider her to be much more alternative and folk than that. And her presence on stage, there's power in her voice. She wears all black typically, and she has this very unique, striking look with short hair. And so her songs also are going into this deep energy as well. She explores Scorpio themes. She explores the quest of deeper meaning through shadows, through darkness, craving, longing. I find that she's really giving us this high vibe Scorpio darkness. And it's not darkness as in like evil, it's just depth, right? And so here are lyrics to her hit song, Constant Craving. "Even through the darkest phase, be it thick or thin, always someone marches brave here beneath my skin. Constant craving has always been. Maybe a great magnet pulls all souls towards truth, or maybe it is life itself that feeds wisdom to its youth." And so let's listen to a clip of that now for research purposes to feel into this energy of Scorpio. So Katie Lang is a Scorpio sun, Virgo moon, Virgo rising, making her an intense little girl, hard at work at her desk, offering her services to the world. And there's something about these two Scorpio queens. We looked at Minnie Riperton last week, and now Katie Lang, both Scorpio sun, both Virgo moons, and they give this reverence to the Scorpio energy that feels really holy. And so I liked seeing how that was reflected in both of their lives. And then finally, legendary confessional poet Sylvia Plath went up against feminist activist and speaker, Golden Globe actress Tracee Ellis Ross. But in the end, Sylvia's ability to transform her pain into art without losing its nightmarish immediacy was giving y'all that Scorpio feel. And so Sylvia won by about 69% of the votes. And so let's honor Tracee Ellis Ross now. Tracee Ellis is a Golden Globe winning actress, model, comedian, director, and television host. She is the daughter of Motown recording artist Diana Ross. On the TV series Girlfriends, Ross played a successful attorney, which is a Scorpio career. She was also the advice giver, which is showing us Scorpio's wisdom, and she often broke her personal vow to abstain from sex when dating. And Scorpio has this relationship to sex, and that fixed energy might be like, okay, I'm going to abstain from it. So she played Scorpio themes. In her most recent known role as Dr. Rainbow Johnson, she plays an anesthesiologist in the comedy series Blackish, and her character is steeped in layers of comic relief that serve as a primer on how to navigate deeper topics like race, rage, gender equality, and politics. And so Tracee is extending her power beyond these characters, and she also is a speaker and an activist, and she uses her platform to talk out about the expectations informed by our culture that's placed upon women. And so she is uncovering these deeper truths. She's taking us a step further from Libra season. During Libra, we explored the intersectionality of race, capitalism, gender, and like the Scorpio that she is, she continues this dialogue but takes it a bit deeper into the emotional realms by addressing how rage and the suppression of rage can turn into depression, and how that is intrinsically linked and passed down to us through our ancestors. And she says, this is a quote from one of her TED Talks, is, "Your fury is not something to be afraid of. It holds lifetimes of wisdom. Let it breathe and listen." She also addresses outdated expectations of womanhood as well. She talks candidly about life as a single woman at 45. She says, quote, "My life is mine," which has given us that Scorpio independence. And let's listen to a quote. Let's listen to a clip now from Tracee Ellis Ross from her TED Talk so you can feel her Scorpio power. She's also a Leo moon. Leo is all about inspiring the collective, instilling passion and camaraderie within the collective. So she's an intense little girl, Scorpio's sun. Front and center on stage, Leo moon, coming into our feminine power with a Taurus North Node. And so let's tune into that now.
Lifetimes of knowing that whether we play by their rules or not, we still have to tolerate harassment, assault, and even worse. Lifetimes of our bodies being used as property that can be hit and hurt, manipulated and moved, and like objects that are not deserving of respect. Lifetimes of not being able to express the anger of our bodies. It's no wonder we feel this fury.
Beautiful and powerful words from Tracee Ellis Ross, talking about shadows and darkness that maybe not everyone is always willing to face. I encourage you to check out her speech. You can find it on YouTube. It's TED Talks, and it's called "A Woman's Fury Holds Lifetimes of Wisdom." Scorpio high vibe right there. We now have 4 out of 8 of our Scorpio grade 8. We've got Winona Ryder, Whoopi Goldberg, Bjork, and Sylvia Plath. And so next week on the show, we'll find out the next 4. We'll have our Scorpio grade 8. And then the next week, it'll be the final 4, and then we'll crown the Queen of Scorpio. And then that will be the season finale of season 4. Can you believe it? So lots to look forward to. Happy Scorpio season as always. Happy Halloween. This last portion of the show I'm super stoked about. We sit down with a shamanic Reiki practitioner, and yeah, well, let's go ahead and transition into that. I hope you enjoy it. Today with us on the show, I'm feeling really excited and humbled because we have the incredible opportunity to dive deep with the powerful, healing, and compassionate Jaguar. And so Jaguar is a shamanic Reiki practitioner, a medicine woman, birth doula, and the founder and curator of LA's very own Mystic Bazaar. And so Jaguar is serving us some mad Scorpio high vibes. And so we have a lot to talk about today. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be able to connect with you and to share.
I'm really excited too. I know that you're a Scorpio sun. Do you know what your moon and rising are?
My rising is Leo, my moon's in Virgo.
Nice. So, Scorpio, huh? Yeah.
Yep.
Scorpio.
Best sign.
Yeah. The thing is in the healing world and the new age world, esoteric world, all of this, we all are feeling into Scorpio energy. And so I think a lot of people really get excited about this time of year, I've noticed. And Scorpio is all about exploring the depths. And so it's a deeply mysterious energy there. And the thing is a lot of the symbolism and archetypes associated with Scorpio have been lost or forgotten in our current culture. And so my first question, I think, just to take us deep, like Scorpio likes to do, I'm just curious what it was like for you as someone who is a Scorpio to grow up as a child with those sort of gifts.
Oh, man. Well, being a Scorpio child, or just being a Scorpio in general, you feel everything so intensely. The lows are really lows, the highs are really highs. And I remember as a kid just feeling everything and being highly sensitive. And I feel like it was a little bit of a challenge because I didn't quite understand why I connected to the world in that way, while the people that were around me and raising me and who were my role models did not see the world or connect to the world in the same way. So I remember having a lot of psychic experiences and visitations from spirit and dreams, and trying to talk to my parents about it, and them not really understanding or telling me that it was all my imagination. Yeah.
And so did you maybe shut these parts of yourself off, or how did you begin to nurture these gifts?
Yeah, I mean, there was a point where I definitely turned it off. I remember having a lot of friends that lived in the sky who were constantly watching me. And now I understand that what I was perceiving as my friends that lived up there, as I called it, were just my spirit guides. And I had that relationship with them. But I remember around 6 or 7 years old asking them to go away because no one else believed that they were there. And also getting to that age where I just started getting self-conscious about always being watched and no one really explaining to me who these beings were. So I turned it off, but it was always there. I've always been very intuitive. And then after high school, I went to college. I went to art school. And I had a sort of awakening where all of these things started happening again. It was a trippy and interesting time. There wasn't a lot of awareness for me back then, and I don't feel as many resources as we have nowadays. But yeah, I feel like anytime I've tried to deny who I am, or walk away from my gifts, or the fact that that this connection exists with the spirit world, things just don't make as much sense for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love what you're sharing because you're tapping us into the Scorpio high vibe. And so one of the archetypes associated with Scorpio is deep healing and shamanism. And you practice shamanic Reiki healing. And I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about shamanism from your experience.
Sure. So, it's definitely a path that chooses you and calls you. And for me, I feel like what really helped me embody this part of myself was working with plant medicine and connecting to the devas of the plants, and doing ceremonial work. So it taught me, and it made me comfortable around the fact that I was walking in between worlds. So I was perceiving spirit beings, ancestors, and at the same time, living here on this planet and still doing things that we have to do as humans. So for me, shamanism is just someone who walks between the worlds, someone who is aware of the world around them, who is in constant connection with the elements, with nature, with planet Earth, while at the same time having a connection and a relationship to ethereal energy and cosmic energy. So I feel like for me, someone that walks the shamanic path is just someone that is aware that there is more than what the eye can see.
Mm-hmm. And is this something that you feel is always with you? Like if you're like just going to the grocery store or something, do you feel this kind of in between the two worlds that you're talking about?
Yes and no. I guess on a practical level, I turn it off. Mm-hmm. But then your life is definitely influenced by it. So if I go to the grocery store, the way that I pick my groceries and my vegetables is which one feels better, which one has, which one am I vibing with more on an energetic level. So, it is kind of always there, but it's not like, I don't know, it's like I am aware of it, but I guess I dial it down a little bit when I'm just, mm-hmm. doing practical things, and then just dial it back up when I'm doing ceremonial work or healing sessions or journeys.
Yeah, you've always had an awareness of, at least since I've known you, I don't know if you remember this, but you're actually my Reiki master.
Of course I remember. Yeah. You know why?
Why?
Because you were actually officially the first person I ever attuned to Reiki and who I taught Reiki to.
That's amazing.
So I remember that. Yeah.
That's cool. For me, I felt so young then, and I looked up to you so much. That's why I wasn't sure if you would even remember,
Aw, I do, and it's been beautiful to watch you and to watch how you're growing and watch how your process. And, I feel like back then we were both beginning mm-hmm. a very beautiful journey. And even though we haven't been in constant contact through the years, I've been watching you and seeing you grow, and it's been really beautiful. And I've always been so honored to have been able to share Reiki with you. And like I said, you were my first.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for you. Do you remember the first time that we met?
I want to say it must have been a party at Body Actualized, and Robbie must have been there too.
You nailed it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was for those of you that don't know what Body Actualized Center is, it was like this like new age ritual warehouse space in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
And it was the mothership.
It was incredible. And I had just moved to New York then, and I was still like starry-eyed coming from North Carolina, and I just somehow found myself immersed in this world. And so the first time that we met, this is a little bit of a story, but I think it will lend a window into understanding you and the work that you offer. And I'm not sure if I've ever actually fully shared it with you, but the first moon circle that I'd ever been to, you came up to me after the gathering and you said something along the lines like your angels are trying to communicate to you, or your guides. And so I went over and I got an angel card reading from you, and what you shared with me, it changed the trajectory of my life. And I would literally not be here right now speaking with you or hosting an astrology podcast if it weren't for you. And so in the angel card reading, you straight out said to me something like, you are a healer. And there was like something in the way that you held like a confidence in the way you were saying things. And also like there was like a feeling, like I was like, this feels like truth to me. And then you said something along the lines like, New York City is happy that you're here. And you continued on to say, I want you to reach out to your angels or your guides because they're trying to communicate with you. And so you shared with me about angel numbers, and you asked me to look out for repeating numbers. But being the contrarian Aquarian that I am, I said something like, well, I want it to be something physical I can pick up and put in my pocket. And so you told me, you're like, that's totally fine. Just let your guides know that. And so you instructed me to go back home, to light a candle, to say a prayer to my guides. And what I didn't share with you at that time was the cafe that I had been working at was closing. And so I didn't know how I was going to make money. I was like in a really like anxious place in my life. And I knew I no longer wanted to work for anyone else, but I didn't know how I was going to make that happen. And so I prayed to my guides, and that was the first time ever in my life that I had prayed to my guides. And then a few days went by, and I kind of completely forgot about it. And then I was helping a friend move, and I was like on the corner guarding her luggage while she went to go get her wallet, and I looked down at my feet, and there I saw this little domino, and I was like, oh my goddess, 2 dots, 2 dots. And I was like, it's a repeating number, and I can pick it up and put it in my pocket. And so I put it in my pocket. I texted you, and I said, I just found my repeating number. It's 22. And you didn't respond for some time until later on in the evening. But the moment that you responded to me, I was in the East Village walking to the cafe that I had been working at that was all boarded up, and I was grabbing my last few belongings, and I was like in this like, it was like kind of like the last walk to the restaurant, you know? And so I was like feeling sad, and I was unsure of what's to come. And that's when you texted me and you were like, oh, 2-2 is a message from your guides to not worry about finances or something like that, to completely follow your heart and that you'll be supported. And so in that moment, your words like pierced right to like the heart of what I was like praying about. And so I took the domino out of my pocket and I held it up to my heart, and I looked up at the moon, and then I closed my eyes. And when I closed my eyes, I felt this rush of wind go by me. And so at first I was like, oh my God, was that my guide? What's going on? And I opened my eyes, and it was a jogger, and the person that was running by me on their jersey had the numbers 22. And so I felt overwhelmed by this. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so I sat down on a front stoop to an apartment in the East Village to process. And I was just kind of like sitting there reflecting, and I looked across the street, and the address across the street was 223. And in this very like almost like a sci-fi movie, I was like, if that's 223, what am I sitting on? And I looked over my shoulder, and I was sitting right at the address 222. And ever since then, I've been working with the number 22. It's the number of cards in the major arcana of the tarot. And it's really like that moment was when I decided to fully pursue walking dogs. And I started my own little dog walking company, which then provided me the time and space to be with the animals and be in my mind to start meditating on tarot, which led me to being a tarot reader and a healer and a teacher and now astrology. And so I bring this story up because I think that it is not only a reflection of the deep power that Scorpio has to create ripple effects in other people's lives, without them maybe even knowing it. But it's also the ability to connect people to their power and their deeper knowings and the mysteries of life. And so, for one, thank you. I'm sure that there's many other stories like this that people have had with you. But I guess, do you still work with angel cards?
Thank you so much for sharing your story, first of all. And do I work with angel cards? No. I still work with angels and spirit guides, but there was a point where I just started exclusively working with tarot because I felt like I was getting the messages from the angels anyway, and tarot was a more and a tool with which I was able to go deeper into my readings. But angel cards were definitely what helped me get comfortable with reading for people.
And what about working with angel numbers?
They're always there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can't escape them, right? Once you're aware of them, they're always there. 555 is one that they're constantly sending my way, which is, change. And it's been like without a fail, every time something significant in my life is about to change, or somewhere where I need to change my perspective, 555. And of course there's always 111. And I get a lot of people that I feel like that's what gets their attention. They start seeing 111 or 1111 everywhere, and it gets them wandering, and it gets them to like start digging and playing detective and finding their own path and their own meaning for the repeating numbers. Yeah, mine's since upgraded to 3s now. I've gone from the 2s to the 3s. So nice. I'm starting to feel into that. That's been just in the past few weeks. Yeah. So then I ended up going into your apartment, and I got Reiki attuned by you. And I'll never forget, I came to your apartment and it was filled with smoke. And I remember you sharing with me that burning sage versus burning frankincense or copal, that there were like different times to burn these sort of plants. And I think I remember you saying sage is actually better for creating like a party atmosphere, something like that. I'm curious, what is your relationship to plants and using them in ritual? Well, they are allies, just like, the angels, of the plant spirits, the energies of plants. Once you open up that door and you start developing a relationship with them, they're always there. Because if you think about it, plants are everywhere in the planet. Mm-hmm. And, we bring them into our homes. We even have them in our kitchen, whether in the form of like herbs or fruits that came from plants or vegetables. We are in constant relationship with them. And for me, so different plants have different personalities and different energies. I don't know about sage being for like a party atmosphere. I'm trying to remember where that came from, but sage for me has a very feminine energy. Where it's definitely going to help clear a space, and it has that. I also feel like it's really good for emotional healing. And frankincense, it's been proven that it helps with depression. I associate frankincense with Christ consciousness, probably because I grew up Catholic, so I associated frankincense with the church and with Jesus Christ. And then copal for me, ancestors. The Mayans used it. So whenever I'm doing work with the ancestors, or work around bringing in abundance and prosperity, because that's what ancestors can help us with too. Manifesting things on the material plane, I'll usually work with copal.
And so you have a shamanic Reiki course coming up in LA. And I think I read today you only have one spot left, which is awesome. Is this the kind of stuff that you might be teaching in the course, or what is a shamanic Reiki course?
Yeah, so it actually just sold out right before I got on the phone call with you, so I'm really excited. And it's my first time teaching shamanic Reiki. I've been teaching just so pure Reiki, ever since I attuned you, more consistent in the last 2-3 years. And I've been playing with the idea of teaching shamanic Reiki for a really long time, but I had, I think it was in the right time, and finally I got that download to do it. So yeah, I'll be teaching a combination of Reiki and shamanic practices, so people would learn how to channel life force energy, cosmic energy, but also how to channel energy from earth, whether from crystals, or how to work with herbs, how to work with with all the 4 elements in order to shift energy, to bring things back to balance. Basically just sharing everything that I do, that I've been learning throughout the years with my own practice, that I have been learning from teachers, and yeah, really excited. But really, I feel like with this course and with all the classes that I do and all the work that I do, for me, it's all about helping people open their heart and know that they are powerful healers, they are powerful magicians and manifestors, and we all have the ability to talk to spirit. We all have the ability to tune into plants and learn from them. And I really feel that when we help people tune in to this part of themselves, because we all have it, like you said, we all have that Scorpio self, that magician, it really changes our relationship with the world around us. When I started working with plants and plant medicine, it really changed my perspective about my relationship with the planet and the way in which I'm taking care of it. And it helped me remember that I am planet Earth. I'm not just someone that's living on her, but I am actually her. I am part of her, and so is everybody. Also knowing that there is spirit allies that are not scary, that are actually angels, or that you can develop a relationship with God, Goddess, whatever you want to call it. I feel like it helps you remember that we're only here for a very short amount of time, and we're here to learn how to be in relationship with each other and with ourselves, and how to have that human experience. Because as I remember in one of my ceremonies, I heard that being human is a psychedelic trip for spirit, right? And it really changed my perspective about being human and the human experience.
I love how messages that come through from spirit can sometimes have a little sass to them. I love that. Being human is a psychedelic trip for spirit.
Yeah.
And this is actually such a wonderful example of what soul-centered Scorpio is. And so I was sharing this with you a little bit before, but in soul-centered astrology, the signs evolve when they allow themselves to explore the far reaches of the other side of the wheel. And so the polar sign to Scorpio is Taurus, which is all about being human. It's all about being in your body and eating nice food and having beautiful colors around you. And when we had the video on a moment ago, like, your whole backdrop was this like beautiful like tourist scene to me. And like I was like, there it is. There's the Taurus already coming through. And so Scorpio, when they learn to take their deep felt emotions and their deep connection to spirit and bring it into the human experience, they then awaken themselves to their soul-centered Scorpio self, which, for one, being human is a psychedelic trip, being aware of that. And then it allows Scorpio to not be so like dark and depressed, and actually to like enjoy their time here on this planet. And when you said, I realized something like, you said something like, I am the earth, that felt like that like grounded soul-centered Scorpio feel, the depth of that. And so Scorpio is also a fixed water sign as well. And so Taurus is fixed earth. I'm wondering, have you ever thought about this polarity of Scorpio and Taurus, and how do you think Taurus energy might bring you in a balance with your Scorpio?
It's interesting that you're bringing this up, because for some reason today on my drive home I started thinking about my ex, who was a Taurus, and the influence of Taurus energy in my life, and what that relationship was like. I feel like in terms of like how it's how I have evolved into it now, I'm definitely channeling, my angst and my deep emotions through art and creativity and beauty, and being grounded in my body and in this planet. Because growing up, I always felt like I was ready to like leave. I was literally waiting for the mothership to come and get me. And I feel like I had a lot of resistance around the human experience, but now I feel like I have this understanding of, no, while I'm human, I get to, try tasty things, and I can hug people and snuggle, and that feels really good. I can look at beautiful art. I can create art. I guess it's all like the sensual aspect of being human, which can be very enjoyable when you are channeling it in a productive and positive way.
You got me smiling.
And cacao, eating lots of cacao.
Oh yeah, yeah. I almost went to your cacao ceremony this past weekend. But then I didn't you have one at, I forget where it was. It's close by.
I had one at Golden Folk in Silver Lake. And I'm actually having one tomorrow at Bhakti Yoga Shala in Santa Monica, if you want to come.
Oh, cool. Tomorrow I'm doing a little ritual with friends for Halloween in the backyard.
Nice.
But
we'll
next
be
time
connecting.
for sure. Yeah, next time for sure. How did you start working with cacao?
Cacao came to me. So, just to give you a little bit of a background story, and Scorpio's ability to transmute and transform and rebirth. My birth last name is Cacao. So my name on my birth certificate is Tanya Cacao. And
oh my gosh.
But this is my birth father's name, who I did not know he was my birth father until I was 12. So up until I was 12, I was the only one in my family that had a different last name, and wasn't really told why. But it was a constant source of struggle for me, and it was like this wound that I had. And finally, when I was 17, I begged and pleaded, and my mom helped me legally change my name and take her last name. So fast forward to about 3 years ago, 2 men come into my life. After I had started doing work around healing my relationship to the masculine and to male energy, and to my birth father and my stepfather. And then these two men come into my life, one of them who was serving cacao in a ceremonial way, and who introduced me to cacao, and who introduced me to the way that he was preparing the cacao and serving it during ceremony. And then this other man who actually owns a chocolate shop in Long Beach, and who was sourcing the cacao, and who also introduced me to cacao by always giving me chocolate whenever I visited him or whenever we hung out. And he was so passionate about cacao and where it came from and what he was doing with it, that it just, it made me really curious about the medicine. And then the medicine started talking to me. So just in the same way that, our spirit guides or guardian angels start connecting with us and wanting to have communication with us, I felt the energy and the spirit of the cacao plant, which is grandmother. So she shows up, or she feels like a grandmother, and she was just letting me know that I would start serving her in a ceremonial way, and I would help her, connect with more people. And yeah, so I did my first cacao ceremony, I think 2 years ago at the Moon Lodge, at Spirit House Collective, and a group of women. I think there were about 13 women, and the first ceremony that I ever hosted was around us as women healing our relationship to the divine masculine and to the men in our lives. So yeah. And then people just started asking me to do ceremony for them with cacao, and we started getting invited to places. And I love her. I love carrying this medicine. I'm really honored that I get to do this type of work, because to me, cacao really is love in liquid form. It is from the earth, the love of the earth, her fruits, for us.
And have you made a connection with the last name?
It doesn't hurt anymore, and it's now, it's part of my story. And now the new connection that has developed with cacao is through my half-sister on my birth dad's side, who recently reached out to me because she noticed that I've been doing cacao ceremonies. And her and I didn't grow up together. We met a couple of times when we were both teenagers, and then we just kind of lost touch. But she sent me a message, and in her message she said that she'd been wondering about her last name and the origin of it, and it just opened up something new for me, where there was this softness around the last name, because now to me the last name is that connection that I have to my sister and to my nieces, and to that part of my story.
So an opportunity for reconnecting and forgiveness, ancestral healing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the medicine of cacao is, right? The medicine of love, of forgiveness, of compassion, of our connection to each other, our family ties, ancestral magic. Yeah.
I think this is kind of getting us into the fixed water nature of Scorpio. And so I think of all the fixed signs as they're really authorities who are creating clear boundaries and holding space for others. And so when that pairs up with the water is, right, it's the deep mystery, it's emotional realms. And so fixed water translates as holding space for others' emotions, creating clear boundaries as, we could say, a mystical leader, since it's fixed water. And so you definitely are all of these things. And you do hold space for others to connect to these realms. You're the founder of the Mystic Bazaar in Los Angeles. And I went this past March, I think it was, around the spring equinox, and there was this incredible group ritual. I think I remember there being a giant snake a part of the ritual as well. And so I kind of would like to expand into this side of you too, because you're also a fierce leader in our community that is like bringing people together. And so the Mystic Bazaar, right, it's like artisans, healers, musicians, artists, they all come together. And so what inspired the Mystic Bazaar?
Mystic Bazaar was my creative outlet. So before Mystic Bazaar, and before I was, I chose to walk the path of the healer, I was an artist, and I was curating art shows, and I was involved in the art community. But when I moved to New York, I started exploring, spirituality and this very Scorpio side of myself. And I feel like I actually threw my first conscious event that would be, I think, what Mystic Bazaar would eventually become at Body Actualized for the spring equinox. And that was the first time that I had healers, and I had live music, and I had vendors, and it was a really great time. So when I moved to LA, and I was missing that vibe of Body Actualized, missing that community, and really missing soul family, because I feel like all of us, that's what we are, right? We're all part of this big family. I wanted to create that here because I was not seeing it happening really. And so I came up with the idea of Mystic Bazaar as a platform for healing, music, ritual, and art. And started inviting my friends, and all I wanted to do was give them and myself a place for us to do what we loved doing. And the first one, people loved it, and people were asking, when are you going to do the next one? And the next one didn't happen until a year later. And it was even though it was the same concept, it was completely different from the first one. And, some of the people from the first one came back, they were new people, and then we just kept doing it. And so now, 3 years later, Mystic Bazaar, I birthed the project, but now it's everybody's baby. It's a collective of healers, of musicians, of ceremonialists, of medicine people, of yogis, that will come together. And when we come together, we open an energetic portal wherever we go. And the whole point of that energetic portal is to help bring in more love, more light, more peace into the world. And I feel like our events are meant to inspire people and to bring people together. And to let people know that they are not alone, that there are others like them.
Beautiful. Is there one coming up soon?
The next one will be in the springtime. We were just at Desert Days Festival, so I'm taking a little bit of a break. But the next one will be for the spring equinox, and it's going to be inspired by the archetype of the Empress. So I'm thinking outdoors, lots of nature, lots of flowers. Yeah.
Gorgeous. Can't wait.
Me neither. I'm excited.
So I think it's cool we get to gather so close to Samhain, to the Day of the Dead, to Halloween time, right? This is all Scorpio. What does this time of year mean to you?
I'm in my element, and everyone else is on the same level. I feel like this time of year is when people give themselves permission to channel their, that part of themselves that they like to keep hidden sometimes. You see a lot of the sexy coming out, or like the shadow coming out, and not necessarily in a dark way, but, I feel like with Halloween, people dressing up, it gives them permission to channel, whatever archetype they need to channel at that moment. Mm-hmm. And, we're more aware of our ancestral ties. We're reminded of the people that have transitioned and our connection to them. It's not so taboo to be witchy, or to be gathering, to do ritual or ceremony. So for me, it's a really fun time of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to think of, because my niece was just born this past week, and she's like on the cusp of Scorpio and Libra, and I just think about like the babies that are born during this time of year, like they're like the first thing that they experience about the world is this time of year, and so it indicates to me that it lines up so much with the Scorpio energy. So I always love looking at what's happening in nature, what's happening in culture at the time people are born, to kind of indicate what their purpose might be here on this planet. And so I find that, Scorpios are holding the ability to bring healing not only to people here on this plane, right, but also to people that have passed away. And there is this connection to death, this sacred portal. And I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do you have any experience with working with people who have passed away, or with grieving, or anything revolved around death?
Yes. Well, congratulations on your baby niece.
Thank you.
And, can't talk about birth without mentioning death, or can't talk about death without mentioning birth, because they're very similar experiences. They're the same thing, just on, in a different way. My experience with death, well, I'm a Scorpio, so I think about sex and death a lot. Like I said, I've perceived spirit, but my first, real experience, I would say, of perceiving someone, or even experiencing death, was when my aunt in Mexico passed away. And, I didn't know that she had passed away. I woke up one night. My brother and I used to share a room. I think I was I must have been 12. And my brother was about 7. And she loved my brother. She really had a special connection with him. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was aware that there was a woman in the room, even though I could not see her body. And then I started hearing my aunt's voice. But it was not like I was hearing it outside of myself in the room. It was more as I was perceiving it almost in my, I don't want to say in my head, but it was it was coming from within. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is that this being became aware that I was awake, and that I was aware that she was having this conversation with my brother. And she said to me, "Oh, I came to visit your brother. You should go back to sleep." And I just said, "Yeah." And, it just seemed completely normal at the time.
So casual.
Yeah. So I went back to sleep. And then the next day I was telling my family about my experience, and telling my brother what my aunt was saying to him. And my brother laughs, and he says, "You're always saying weird stuff like that. Why does this weird stuff always happen to you?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then the phone rings, and my brother picks up, and it's my dad letting him know that my aunt had passed away the night before. Mm-hmm. And so my brother has never doubted me ever since. So that was my first experience with someone that left their body. And now that I do this type of work, and it's there. It comes with the territory. There is life after death, just as there is life before birth. We are spiritual. We're spirit beings. And, we're just passing through. We just happen to have this body for a little bit. And then we continue on our journey.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the reminder of that. It's very, it feels settling to me, So we're coming to the close of our time together, and something that we do on the show, we're working on the Queen of the Zodiac series, in which I select 16 legendary women who are embodying the traits of the astrological season that we're in. And so right now we have the Queen of Scorpio, and I had actually reached out to you to see if there were any queens that I didn't include on the list that you liked, and you had named a few. Do you remember which ones you shared with me?
Well, I think it was Indira Gandhi, and it's because we share the same birthday. And the other one, not very well known, and it's 555 right now, by the way. I just looked up. Her name is Tamara Bunk. Her spy name was Tanya, so this is the woman that I'm actually named after, who was a revolutionary who assisted Che Guevara and is said to have been his lover. And my parents didn't know it when they named me after her, but her and I share the same birthday.
Wow.
Weird, huh?
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So those are both incredible examples of Scorpio. I missed them for the Queen of the Scorpio, but I did put together 16, and I sent you the update of it today. And I usually like to ask people who they think is giving them that high vibe of that astrological sign. So who do you think is the final two for the Queen of Scorpio?
Bjork and Bjork.
I love it.
Yeah, maybe Peaches, but Bjork, I mean, she's so weird in the best way, and I feel like she really embodies that, that Scorpiness of, I'm just gonna be myself. I'm just gonna allow myself to be different, and maybe misunderstood, but people also connect to her because she is different. They can relate to that difference and that uniqueness. And I feel like she is channeling a lot of that intensity through her art. Yeah. Through the way that she dresses, the music that she creates. Yeah. I love me some Bjork.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Cool. So to close out our time together, we do this thing on Cosmic Cousins called Cosmic Slip and Slide. And what it is it's a 60-second game where I ask you as many questions as you can answer in 60 seconds about Scorpio, but it's about your personal relationship to Scorpio. It's not like a pop quiz. And so are you up for the Cosmic Slip and Slide Challenge?
Yeah, sounds fun.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll put 60 seconds on the clock, and we'll start now. What astrological sign is Scorpio most attracted to?
Taurus.
What crystal do you associate with Scorpio?
Garnet.
What is Scorpio like in the morning?
Moody.
If Scorpio were a smell, what smell would it be?
Patchouli.
What two colors do you associate with Scorpio?
Black and red.
What kind of flowers would you put on an altar to honor Scorpio?
Datura and roses.
Describe Scorpio in 3 words.
Sexy, magical, unicorn.
What astrological sign is Scorpio most likely to ask advice from?
Aquarius.
Cool. What texture is Scorpio?
What texture? Velvet.
What genre of movie is Scorpio most like?
sci-fi.
Yeah, and we're right at time. You did really well.
That was really fun.
You might have broken the record for Cosmic Slip and Slide. I'll have to go back and count later. I'll let you know. You were just popping them out.
Woo!
Yeah. I kind of want to just like touch base on some of them. You said, what crystal do you associate with Scorpio? I think you said garnet.
Yeah. Garnet, and for me it's a very sexy crystal related to the root chakra, to self-confidence. Yeah. Just, if I was a crystal, I would be garnet.
Yeah. And you said Scorpio smells like patchouli.
Because to me, patchouli is the scent of sex and abundance and earthiness and mystery.
And then maybe my favorite one was, what astrological sign is Scorpio most likely to ask advice from? You said Aquarius.
Yeah, Aquarius just... I feel like because Aquarius, they're really good at doing research. They have a lot of really good insight and information, and it just happens that lately the people that I've been drawn to, opening up to, are Aquarius, like you.
Cool. I think if I were to answer that question, I would say I'd most likely ask Scorpio for advice.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, thank you so much for being on the show today, Jaguar.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
All right, cousins. Thanks again, as always, for tuning into the show. Rate 5 stars on iTunes. Leave some comments and love. And I hope you have a beautiful Halloween season. I'm going to be carving some pumpkins tonight and doing a little bit of ritual honoring my ancestors and my loved ones who have passed away in the past year. And so I'm sending love to you and to all of the spirit realm. Take sweet care, cousins. I'll see you next week. And remember, deep breaths